This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous good-looking friends. Fun fact for the day, Lively Group works as a hybrid, independent, interdependent company model that seamlessly integrates editorial, design, audio, finishing, and digital interactive capabilities across an entire media spectrum. And they apparently are based in my neck of the woods here in New York City. I wonder if part of their services include employees going after people on social media to suppress voices on behalf of clients. This actually might be a very good topic to expose in the future, but we'll see. Anyhow, let's move on to this week's royal media distractions. Another sticky situation for Meghan Markle's American Riviera Orchard business as its swirly logo gets a thumbs down. Help me understand, why is that newsworthy? I set out to discover what Prince Harry was really like behind the spotlight. Is Prince Harry planning a royal comeback?
Oh my God, who the hell cares?
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's Montecito neighbors give a rare look into their lavish daily life. Meghan Markle suffers major setback as Prince William sports surprising back-to-work look. What Prince Harry said about Meghan Markle's visit to Althorpe.
Nobody cares! Nobody! And you need to shut up!
And the best, what I learned while traveling with Harry and Meghan. And Meghan Markle's mom has become a rock for Prince Harry and has even earned a comparison to Queen Elizabeth. You can see how stupid these headlines have become that I'm not even reading them anymore. But the one that really matters is the one that they didn't promote or highlight as much, which is this one. Prince Harry, Matt Damon, set to speak at the Clinton Global Initiative meeting in New York City. Clinton says, "Let's get to work." So according to People magazine, they write, the former president, 78, told the AP that the 2024 Global Clinton Initiative would double down on efforts. We started CGI because we wanted to have a meeting where people didn't just talk about big problems, but where we could roll up our sleeves and get something done. Oh, kind of like Archwell Fugazi public charity of showing up and doing good? Anyhow, Clinton said in a statement to the outlet, "It's more important than ever to be optimistic and realize we all have the ability to make a difference." So this two-day gathering, which is kicking off on September 23rd in NYC, is focused on what's actually working in efforts to tackle climate resilience, global health equity, gun violence, the protection of journalists, humanitarian crises, and other issues. So the most important thing to understand here about this Clinton Global Initiative meeting is that it is time to align with the UN General Assembly, connecting to a previous detail about Prince Harry's upcoming trip to NYC. People magazine writes, last week, a spokesperson for the Duke of Sussex announced that Prince Harry will visit New York City during UN General Assembly High-Level Week and Climate Week. Climate Week kicks off on September 22nd and ends September 29th, and High-Level Week runs from September 23rd to September 27th. That's all fine and dandy, but they're not being fully transparent. But in general, overall, the entire media is not being transparent. Instead, we are being distracted by this garbage that they keep putting out in front of us. And what people don't realize that what's happening in 2 weeks is a legit power grab. Raise your hand if you know anything about the Summit of the Future that is happening on the 23rd and 24th. The major focus of this General Assembly this year is this pact for the future that they want the member states, meaning the countries, to sign off on and commit to. Here's a summary of what this evil shit is about.
The Summit of the Future is designed for the leaders of the world to take a look at the whole global architecture, at how we do international cooperation, and to make it better. The most important ingredient is trust. the summit is going to adopt 3 agreements: a pact for the future, a global digital compact, and a declaration on future generations. The Pact for the Future has 5 chapters on sustainable development, peace and security, youth and future generations, science and technology, and transforming global governance. You look at the UN and you think governments are the key players, and that's true, they're the ones sitting around the table, but they do so on behalf of their people. Civil society actors, young people have been involved throughout and will be at the summit. Private sector will be here in recognition of the massive role they have in shaping people's lives and opportunities today. This summit is for and by everyone, and everyone should see themselves reflected in it. The summit is not just 4 days in September. Most of the seeds that we plant at this summit will take some time to grow and flourish, and all of us have to be involved in holding governments responsible for living up to their commitments on the international stage. It's going to take all of us to make this summit a success.
Sounds harmless, right? But the UN Secretary General Guterres writes, "Our common agenda is aimed at turbocharging the 2030 agenda and making the sustainable development goals real in the lives of people everywhere. Because halfway to 2030, we are far off track. We will only make up lost ground by addressing the gaps and challenges that have emerged since 2015, including gaps in intergovernmental cooperation." So, right here, they are telling you they are trying to hustle this along because you know what's threatening them? Donald Trump. This common agenda, or I shall say communist agenda, was disrupted when President Trump got elected and disrupted this whole plan for 4 years. Hence the reason why they didn't allow him to get back into office in 2020. You see the corruption that's happening now with our electoral system. It's the United Nations, the World Health Organization, and the World Economic Forum who are responsible for all of that. This coup that is about to take place while no one is paying attention to is about forcing us, without even knowing it, into this global citizenship adoption and the ethics around it. Their whole plan pertaining to how they want to centrally manage all of us that had been clearly defined over the last several decades. Agenda 21, these SDG goals, now rebranding it as Agenda 2030 and rebranding it again because people are catching on because social media is able to share truth and information that they don't want to see come out. Now we're under this pact for the future. Obviously, they can't call it a treaty because it would have to pass through the United States Senate in order to get the vote, in order to accept signing something like this. This should be infuriating people because it's underhanded, it's dirty, and our current leadership here in the United States is selling the American people out and using our money to do it. And what's so gross about this is that all the countries or member states that are part of this are not discussing this with the public. The people that represent them, they're going on and making these decisions without any type of so-called democracy, which now I hate this word because it really does mean socialism. They are not discussing it with the people and giving them a voice to say whether or not we want to be a part of this global governance. I never signed up to be a global citizen. I don't want to be a global citizen. I want to be an American, and I want American values represented here, which is capitalism. I do not want socialism. This common agenda or communist agenda is really forcing our lives to now be enslaved. Do we want to see our future under a social and carbon credit system? Do we want to see drones, facial recognition, and movement sensors? Forcing the digital health passport, which they're already starting to do. Rationing of food and energy, which it will come to that if we give the UN the power that they are desiring here. Patent on seeds and restricted access to heirloom food. Why do you think China and Bill Gates have been buying up farmland? Why do you think he's been manipulating the food source with his crazy concoctions and vaccines? We have abolishment of genders, strict regulations on medicine and treatments, universal basic income. They are talking about all of this in this Pact for Future and these documents. They want to eliminate cash and put everybody on this central banking system or architecture that they have clearly lined out for everyone on so-called financial equity. They also want to control population and reproduction, hence the reason why the marketing spin on empowering women and giving them the right to choose and have options to handle their fertility and sexual health. And the worst threat of all is the abolishment of private property. And we're not just talking about your car or your house. We're talking about your children. We're talking about your own health and ownership of that. What they believe is that it belongs to the collective in our shared responsibility. This so-called Pact for the Future or Treaty for the Future that member states will be committing to in September is forcing us into becoming these global citizens that will have to accept global government, global religion, a global society under a global economy. To understand what's at stake, you have to understand Agenda 21. Here is a great summary that shows you the path that we are on at this moment.
This is a plan that was agreed to by 179 nations. It's called the Agenda for the 21st Century. It's a totalitarian state being developed right now all over the world. It is the inventory and control plan. Inventory and control of all land, all water, all minerals, all plants, all animals, all construction, all means of production, all food, all energy, all information, and all human beings in the world. And this is a plan that was agreed to by 179 nations back in 1992. It's a United Nations plan. It's called the Agenda for the 21st Century. And so many of us around the world think that, sustainable development, it just sounds so great. Isn't it about recycling and creative reuse and creating energy and food resources for everyone? And the answer is no, it really is not. It's about moving populations into city centers, concentrated city centers, and clearing them out of the rural areas. All systems have to be brought into harmony in order to control them all. Because when systems don't meet, when they're out of balance or not in sync with one another, they can't be controlled centrally. And the goal of Agenda 21 is one world government and total control from a central unit. Every nation that signed on to Agenda 21 has its local Agenda 21 plan. People in the United States are completely unaware of this. If I go out and talk about this, the United States press will attacks me and calls me, which is totally ridiculous. It is but it's not a theory, it's a fact. The three pillars of United Nations Agenda 21 are economy, ecology, and equity, the three E's. And everyone sort of thinks that they know what that means, the idea of social equity. It must mean that, well, everyone's going to have access to clean water and clean air, and no one's property is going to be used as a dumping ground because they are at a poverty level. But really what social equity is about impoverishing huge portions of the population and bringing down the developed nations. Everything that we're looking at now is destined to collapse our economies. It's a totalitarian state being developed right now all over the world. And what major corporations want in this development is to be able to have full movement of workers without borders or boundaries, to be able to move their goods through without regulations, and to reduce wages. And so this is the goal. So this is what you find with social equity. And of course, economy and ecology is about, these are the three circles: economy, ecology, and social equity. And where they meet in the center is balance. But really that balance is a communitarian balance. So it's not balance of well-being of the people. What it is it's a balance for corporations so that they can exploit and control and have populations in an area, in tightly packed, dense areas, so that they can be surveilled and managed. And this is what that balance looks like as far as the development of a totalitarian state is. The mainstream media is owned by 5 major corporations, and you're not going to get this information from the mainstream press. So you need to be your own press. You need to educate yourself. You need to get out there and educate your neighbors, your community, your real community. You need to help your children understand that they're being indoctrinated from pre-kindergarten to postgraduate school. All of us have a responsibility to ourselves and to others. This is true community, to work for personal freedom. And always remember that even though we work as a group, if we do work as a group, we're all individuals in those groups, and we answer only to ourselves. And this is essential. It's essential as free human beings. This is what we are. We are free, and we need to continue to be free. And I do believe that we will win, but we have to become aware that there is a fight, and then make our friends and our neighbors and our community aware as well, and work together.
So now when we go back and we talk about Harry's participation with the Clinton Global Initiative, as well as being there for this week at the UN, of course, they're not going to be transparent to say what Harry's discussions will be or the meetings that he's having. We know that Harry and Meghan are aligned with the World Economic Forum and the UN and the various people in this cabal of globalists who are trying to destroy the world and take everything for themselves. We know this. These people are morally corrupt, they're Satanists, and they are predators on our children in the most evil and heinous ways.
And previously, the foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative, is a project of the foundation. You know, as we uncovered through the emails of the State Department, the Clintons had been using the foundation as a pass-through for influence peddling. And donors were treated, given special favors at the State Department, despite promises. And of course, a lot of money came from, guess where? Russia, Ukraine. And I tell you, like Hillary Clinton opening up this operation again is like Al Capone reopening a casino. We can presume there's going to be criminal activity, influence peddling. And I tell you, if you support Ukraine's cause, the last thing you want is Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton messing it up with their influence peddling. And this is a way for them to accumulate power and provide a platform for them for their political purposes, in addition to, you know, paying the bills.
Do you suppose that anyone from Haiti was consulted on whether the Clintons would be the best people to head up such a large operation? There's millions and millions of dollars that are going to the Clinton Foundation from us and from other donors, and then they get to distribute it out. Let's talk about what they did in Haiti.
Haiti's notorious for the Clintons. Obviously, Bill invaded Haiti.
Yeah.
And then they ran this operation where a lot of friends of Bill and Hillary were there in Haiti, and Haitians to this day resent the Clintons' involvement because they thought aid money was diverted to their friends. And you know, when you have billions of dollars sloshing around in Ukraine, who do you think is going to be attracted to this? Now, they're saying we're going to have heads of government involved and unions and the usual suspects. But this highlights, to me, the concerns Americans have about aid in Ukraine. Things are so bad that Hillary Clinton thinks that she can get a little bit of it. And this is the sort of thing that, in my view, should alert law enforcement, given the prior activity of the Clinton Foundation and Clinton Global Initiative, that there's an operation going on up there in New York that deserves monitoring.
To say the least. This is really a shameless move on their part, considering the bad name. As you said, Hillary couldn't even go campaign in Haitian communities because they were so angry at the corruption that the Clinton Foundation committed in Haiti. So
she got her Rachel, just quickly.
Sure.
Her foundation, Bill's foundation, got millions of dollars from a Ukrainian oligarch.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a racket.
It is a racket.
These greedy little goblin grifters all see the money. And with this pact for the future, there will be contracted NGOs and foundations that will be given large sums of money to go ahead and pull this global governance off, heading towards meeting these SDG goals, which all of us know is a sham. I want to stress the reason why I talk so much about freedom of speech and protecting that at all costs is understanding that if you lose your free speech, you lose everything else, which is why free speech is such a thorn in the sides of these globalists. So, according to the Clinton Global Initiative, what's working, as they say here, as the CGI community meets once again in New York City, the global challenges we face are stark. And current efforts to meet the moment are coming up short at the scale needed to beat the negative trend lines we face. Oh, you mean the truth? Anyhow, we all know what's not working. Our efforts to curb climate change aren't accelerating fast enough. Mis and disinformation campaigns are influencing elections around the planet. I'm going to pause right there and say, don't you see the irony here, considering Hillary Clinton was responsible for starting mis and disinformation surrounding the Trump campaign and Russian collusion? Oh, the irony of this. Like, they really do think people are stupid. Health inequities are rising, and more people are falling into poverty than climbing out of it. Every morning, headlines read of more conflict and less cooperation. Now, after reading this second part of this paragraph, I feel like they were 100% gaslighting the public by saying that because they are the reasons for people falling into poverty. With all this climate change bullshit that they are putting onto the world, giving excuse to charge people more for carbon this, carbon that. You can't travel there, you can't go here. Meanwhile, they're doing the exact opposite. And then saying every morning headlines read of more conflict and less cooperation when they are the ones who are controlling the media by pushing out this propaganda. So continuing on with the last paragraph, at the onset of this year's United Nations General Assembly, we all have a responsibility to move beyond a focus on what's broken. We all have a responsibility to identify, uplift, and scale the solutions that are defying the odds. Sounds like a lot of word salad there. We all have the responsibility to act with urgency and get to work because our future depends on it. These are the same people that broke the system and now coming up with these so-called solutions to enslave us. One of the more interesting sessions for this event is the focus on how are they going to get money, the future of funding, in which it says here, while philanthropy has endeavored to reach historically marginalized communities for generations, these efforts are less effective when donors chase headlines or demonstrate a lack of trust in their partners and grantees, or when attacks on DEI didn't earn it result in restrictions on giving. The one thing that I find really annoying about these people is their lack of accountability. So blame the media for the headlines and turning people off from giving. Instead, they're giving to people directly, and they have a problem with that because the funds are now not going through them anymore because they've been exposed for being corrupt and lining their own pockets rather than actually getting the money to really helping people. So it's bullshit when they say that a lot of these organizations help these communities when a lot of times the money doesn't even get to the people that it needs to help, such as the veterans, the kids in Africa. I mean, when we're talking about disaster recovery for hurricanes and natural disasters, these are the organizations that profit the most from these types of catastrophes and suffering. And that's why they're so gross to me. Funders are increasingly looking for more effective ways to deploy capital and promote wealth redistribution as they interrogate their own wealth, dip into endowments, and work towards a rebalance of power. This session will explore what's working in philanthropy today to help direct resources towards historically marginalized communities and frontline organizations and create a pipeline for a more equitable and inclusive future of funding. Every time I see the word equitable and inclusive, I want to vomit because it means the exact opposite. It's how do we exploit and take advantage of vulnerable communities to line our own pockets, because that's what's going on here. They're constantly talking about wealth redistribution, but they're not talking about their own money. Oh, God, no. They're talking about our money. They're talking about how do we take your money and give it equitably all around to line our own pockets. You see, these billionaires all could very well solve some of these problems, whether it be food insecurity or helping people who are in poverty, but they don't. They rely on us in order to fund all of this while keeping people still oppressed. They're never going to solve poverty. They're never going to solve hunger. They're never going to solve the things that they put in the SDG goals, which is completely intentional to continue on having the excuse of taking your money. So when you look at all the participants that are going to be there, you start to realize who is really backing Meghan and Harry and how their foundation got off the ground and why it's almost parallel to how we see the Clinton Foundation set up. So what you're looking at here now are all the people that Harry and Meghan are aligned with who are participants in this Clinton Global Initiative. So some faces you might recognize, like Maria Ressa, who we just saw down in Colombia with Meghan and Harry talking about keeping the kids safe. Aww. Instead, these are the ones that are pushing for this censorship. We also have the CEO of Humanity Crew, another organization that Archewell Fugazi Public Charity is aligned with. Then you have Dr. Tedros from the World Health Organization. Remember, Harry and Meghan were a part of trying to force vaccine equity onto everyone in the world, which I highly doubt they themselves took the jab. Tedros allegedly didn't take the jab. He's on record saying that he's not going to take it until everybody has access. Then you have Jane Goodall, who is very much in favor of population reduction. You know, right smack in the middle, you have Jose Andres, who was a part of World Central Kitchen. Welcome.us, also another entity where billions of dollars is going towards that in settling migrants here in the United States, not really acclimating them to our culture, but keeping their culture intact. We all know this, seeing the work that Archewell Fugazi Public Charity is doing. Initially, when this was announced, I said to myself, why are they inviting this idiot to come and speak there? And then you realize that it's because he is a part of this network. Not only does his name attract attention, good or bad, it still attracts attention, but it's also because Ratchet Rachel was heavily entwined with the Clinton side of things. You know, we go way back to 2013-14, where Rochelle was very close to this guy, John Fitzpatrick, who was very close to Bill Clinton and was a big supporter and donor to the Hillary Clinton campaign. Meghan also brought in with her Sunshine Sachs, who was very close to Bill and Hillary. Then in 2019, Meghan and Harry hire Sarah Latham, who was the former senior advisor on Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. And the reason why I bring her up is because she was listed in Sleazy E's Black Book under Doug Band. Now, Doug Band was the former advisor to Bill Clinton and then later became the key architect to creating the Clinton Global Initiative. He also is an American businessman and lawyer who was a founding partner and former president of Teneo, a multinational C-suite advisory firm and investment bank. And the reason why this guy is important is because this company, Teneo, that was set up, is the company that had been advising Archewell Fugazi Public Charity. And in this instance, you can honestly say that birds of a feather are definitely flocking together, particularly around this globalist agenda.
Later, she would even use her connections to Clinton in an effort to get herself a lower sentence. Maxwell claimed that by helping launch the Clinton Global Initiative, demonstrated she has a desire to do good in the world. Friends say the former US president was smitten.
These are the evil kind of people that we're dealing with. Harry and Meghan are very much a part of it. So I'm going to leave you on this last note. This was taken by Steven Crowder, posted on his X account. This is an undercover video with an associate legal officer in the treaty section of the UN Office of Legal Affairs explaining what the definition of a globalist is and the UN's true intention of consolidating powers towards this one world government.
So is globalism one of the goals for the UN?
Absolutely. It's a threat to the absolute power of the United States. One of the objectives of the UN is to create an identity of a global citizen.
They create this institution, which is the closest we've ever got to kind of like a world government. The United States government funds 27% of the UN budget.
Is that more than anyone else?
Oh, by a long stretch.
So is the UN just like useless now?
I would say for 95% of issues related to international peace and security, yes.
You know, the United Nations does not have its own army. Absolutely.
I'm not sure the United Nations as an institution is going to survive a second term by Donald Trump. One of the defining features of this MAGA movement is the ultranationalism. And one of the main enemies are what they call the globalists. And the definition of a globalist.
A United Nations without the action of the United States backing it up, it's not going to be effective.
The purpose of Donald Trump is to end the international institutions that somehow level the playing field. It's a movement that is deeply nationalistic. It's America first, America, make America great again, America, America, America. He wants America first.
So does the UN not want him? Yeah, because I remember her.
We are terrified. They're terrified.
So the internal vibe of the UN is like no one wants Trump because
absolutely nobody wants Trump.
And that is the frustrating thing, man, is that we are funding our own demise. Our money is going into supporting this diabolical blueprint for this new world order or one world governance. There are so many people that have no idea that this is about to happen. You have to look out for this manipulative language that they use. The way that they're selling this is about international cooperation for sustained development. But always remember that what this is about is for total control. The core approach with this treaty now is about planetary commons, which is creating a global government with the power to control Earth's vital systems like air, water, and natural resources. This is a system where there's two classes. You have the elite ruling class, which is a small handful of people who have this kind of power. And then you have the rest of the world and the population that they will be controlling. This is not conspiracy. This is fact, and this is happening come September 22nd and 23rd. The COVID crisis that they unleashed on us was a test, and now they're using the climate as the excuse for all this other shit. All the money that's being funneled for research and development really is going back into the hands who created these narratives. Trust the science, they said. They lied to us, they manipulated the public, and they want us to trust them with governance around every facet of our life. We see Harry and Meghan's actions and behavior supporting this. I don't need to tell you that this is pure evil. So let me leave you on this final thought. This is an organization that's pushing member countries like the United States into committing to, in the event of a global shock or complex global shock, such as a financial collapse or another pandemic or some type of cataclysmic climate emergency. You know how they like to manipulate that weather. They want the power to be able to turn over to them to centralize direction on how to handle the crisis. So in this instance, it would be the Secretary General, as well as other people around him in the UN, nobody that we elected to make these decisions to get us through the tough times. This is the dangerous part of these people playing God and wanting to control us. I find it deeply troubling that this is about to happen in less than 2 weeks. And not only are people not talking about it, but there's so many people who are unaware that this is about to happen. And it's angering that there's so much control on information. When it concerns something as important as this, they don't want much noise around it. But thank you, Prince Harry, for telling us that you're going to be speaking at the Clinton Global Initiative because you think you're important. All this does is put a spotlight now on the importance of not complying with what these people are doing. Now, on this final note, All I can say is do not comply. In fact, allow the ignorant Harry and Meghan fans to get on that train first when they come and say, we'll take you to someplace that's safe, that's diverse, that's equitable and inclusive. Let the useful idiots get on that train first because they are always the first to go. On that note, definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe and I'll talk to you later. Bye!
I was such a fraud.